WBNG welcomes you to the 2017 Children's Miracle Network Celebration Telethon. And now, your hosts, 12 News, Candace Chapman and Howard Manges.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this year's Children's Miracle Network Celebration. I'm 12 News Chief Meteorologist Howard Manges.
And I'm Candace Chapman. WBNG is very proud to once again be part of this celebration.
Well, most children are excited to be getting out of school and starting their summer break. This is not true for everyone. Some children are dealing with chronic conditions, life-threatening illness, or acute traumas. We'll be spending the next hour talking with you about the Children's Miracle Network and what they do, specifically at the Geisinger Janet Weiss Children's Hospital in Danville, Pennsylvania.
The Children's Miracle Network's mission is to help children, help them not only survive, but to thrive. Your donations fund life-saving equipment as well as specialized programs. We'll show you some of this equipment, and you'll meet members of the Janet Weiss Children's Hospital staff that work to make these miracles possible every single day.
Now we'd like to send it down to Around the Tears host Kara Conrad, who will take us on a tour of the Geisinger Janet Weiss Children's Hospital in Danville, Pennsylvania. It's part of the Children's Miracle Network that serves the kids in our community that benefit from your generosity every year.
Thanks, Howard and Candace. I'm here at the Geisinger Janet Weiss Children's Hospital in Danville, PA, home to the Children's Miracle Network. This was the first rural acute care children's hospital built in America. The hospital has the latest technology to care for children who have chronic illnesses or have suffered a trauma. Everything here is geared towards children, from the child-sized chairs and countertops at the nurses' stations to the bright and whimsical murals on the walls. It is due to your donations that the Janet Weiss Children's Hospital can make miracles happen for these amazing children. Call 1-800-799-KIDS to donate to keep the miracles coming. And speaking of amazing kids, let's now meet this year's Miracle Kids, the Goodman triplets, and hear their story.
My husband's name is Brian, and I'm Amy, and my three children are Grace, Reese, and Clark.
I'm Reese, and I'm 11. I'm Clark, and I'm same age as him, obviously.
I'm Brian. This is my daughter, Grace.
My husband and I lived in Pennsylvania, and we were hopeful to have children, and it wasn't going so well, so eventually we sought some help, and the one thing they told us was that we had a pretty good chance of having twins. And we went for the first time to the hospital and did the blood work, and they said, congratulations, you're pregnant, and of course we were overjoyed. And then we went back a week later, and we went in, and the doctor said, congratulations, there are two. And so we knew that was a possibility. The doctor said there was a good chance of twins, and to me that was perfect. One shot and done. And little did I know I was going to get one shot and finished with the next round. So we went in again a week later, and the doctor said, this has never happened to me, but you basically have 4 fraternal embryos. You have quadruplets. And at that moment, we were in shock. And the doctor said, I'm going to leave you alone for a little bit because we need to talk. And he left the room, and my husband, in nervousness, started laughing, and I started crying. And so from that moment on, we knew that this was a very high-risk pregnancy and that we had to take certain precautions.
Obviously, quadruplet pregnancies are a very high risk. Getting any of them beyond 30 weeks is usually nothing short of a major miracle.
When we went in, I think it was January 10th, and the doctor said, you're not going anywhere. You've started to dilate, you're staying here. And I was only, I was just under, I think I was 25 weeks at that point. They admitted us, and 2 days later, unfortunately, I couldn't hold them in, and I gave birth.
Amy came in at 24 weeks, already showing signs that she was likely going to need to be delivered early. We knew we were expecting 2 boys, 2 girls, and at 25 and 1/7 weeks, we reached the point where they needed to be delivered because of ongoing dilation and signs that if we didn't take control of the situation, we were going to have 4 babies coming at us in the middle of the night.
All 4 NICU doctors at Danville Geisinger Hospital were ready to receive all the babies.
This was a definite all hands on deck experience. We basically were able to mobilize 1 neonatology attending for each one of these infants. We had them spread throughout the NICU, used up a lot of resources that day.
And it wasn't a normal birth, of course. They told me I wasn't going to be able to see them. I wasn't going to be able to hear them cry because their lungs were underdeveloped. And one of the best sounds I heard was after they pulled out the first baby, which was baby A at the time, and that was baby Sophia. She cried. And she's the only one we heard cry, and that gave me a lot of hope because we were told they weren't going to cry. So that was a really good sign for me. And then they took them away and we went in to visit them probably about 3 hours later. And when we went in, it was a bit of a shock, of course, to see babies that you'd hoped would have been healthy to be there with monitors going off and tubes coming out of everywhere. And they didn't look like they were happy and healthy, let's put it that way. So it was a bit difficult. But I remember saying the first words to my parents and my in-laws, I'm a mom and that's my job now. And so I dedicated at that point 100% to being there and helping to learn about what was going on in the hospital and until they came home. At first, it was, to say overwhelming is an understatement. It was to have 4 babies in the NICU and then learning about all the different issues of lungs were underdeveloped. That was probably the biggest issue. So many issues at the time. One of the doctors even saying to me, I can't guarantee they will walk, talk, or run. So it was a nightmare being in the hospital. They were each in for, I don't know the exact days, but about 100 days, each of them. The toughest part, of course, was their life was constantly in the balance. So with Sophia, she was the one who at the beginning was the strongest. And when I was carrying the babies, she was on the bottom and the 3 were on the top. And they say that a lot of times the baby that's carried the most weight tends to be the strongest. And she was the strongest throughout the time. She was the one that we constantly were seeing her development happening a lot faster. But ultimately, about, I'd say 6 weeks in maybe,
She developed a bacterial infection from which honestly she truly never recovered, in the sense that she underwent so much end organ damage at that point that eventually it caught up with her.
and we were called in the middle of the night to say last rites and to say goodbye to her. And to me, that night was a miracle because the doctor was phenomenal in saying, you'll be able to hold her before she goes, because at that point I'd only touched her hand, touched her foot, maybe helped to change a diaper, but I had not actually held her as a mother should hold their child. So that was all I wanted to do at that point, was praying a lot and saying, God, if you're going to take her today, please let me have a moment to hold her. And I did. I actually got to hold her, and that was a special moment, and miraculously she didn't pass away. And even the doctor said, I can't believe this is happening. We took her off her oxygen and she's actually holding steady.
And when she was 2 months old, she had basically been on maximal support for close to 96 hours. We knew at that point that she was having seizures, that her brain was just absolutely devastated. And so before she actually died on support, we actually took her off support that night, Brian, Amy, and I. We actually brought her down here. We're taping in the Children's Hospital lobby, and the doors that are just over there are the doors we took her out. We took her outside at night. She got to see the outside world and died that evening.
So we lost her 2 months in on March 13th.
So hers is a very sad story. It is also one where we did get to have her for 2 months, and at 25 weeks, you are still facing a significant risk of mortality. I mean, more than 50% of babies die. In this case, 3 out of the 4 survived.
The very next day, Grace had to have surgery to determine if she could see or not. So I had to go from saying goodbye to a daughter to the next day not knowing if my daughter was going to be blind.
Gracie is our next one. I have to admit, and they all know it, Gracie's my favorite, and that's because I was Gracie's team when she was born. Gracie had her share of complications. She had some bleeding in her brain, she had some lung disease, spent some time on a ventilator. Her biggest issue was that she developed pretty severe retinopathy of prematurity, which is a vascular disease that affects the retina, the seeing part of the eye. And if you don't step in and treat that, the retina can detach and you can have an infant or anyone who goes blind.
Wonderful thing is she can see. She does have a learning or a vision disability, but she is able to see, and she does not see it as a disability at all.
After that, Gracie, boy, the girl got her act together after that. She was the first to go home. She kind of paved the way for her brothers.
Reese is my caretaker. Kind of call him the gatekeeper.
He was our quiet one. He also had an infection when he was 2 weeks old. Unlike his sister, it did not. He recovered much faster. He did not have bleeding. He did not have the problem with his eyes. He just kind of took his time. He also went home on oxygen. He also went home on medications. He also went home with a monitor, but he was always kind of the quiet one. And there's Clark. Kind of was from the beginning. You know, he's kind of your trickster.
He's the one who's had the most health issues of the three. He's had 2 surgeries. When he came home, he was still, they all actually were on oxygen monitors and had to have breathing treatments every 4 hours. And he remained the longest on the oxygen and also still has some issues. He has chronic kidney disease, and we always worry when he gets a cold because it can flare up. He also has had whooping cough when he was vaccinated for it, so he just has a lot of lung issues, so we have to really watch him pretty carefully.
He also had bleeding in his brain like his sister Gracie, but didn't have the same difficulty with his eyes. I think he's the one who may have caused his parents the most angst though during the NICU, because you just never knew what was coming next with Clark. And then he was the one who just loved it in the NICU because he's the one who took the longest. I mean, his sister was home for basically a month before he went home. What was nice when the children did this is, of course, it was one at a time and it was building up. What you have to realize is by the time it was done, they had home 3 former 25-weekers, all on oxygen, all on medications, all on monitors, all needing to be fed every 3 hours, all with very different personalities, even at that young an age. To have 25-weekers survive shouldn't be taken for granted. To have 25-weekers survive and have this many complications and then turn out as well as these children have is really rather unbelievable.
So now it's more checkups. It's more Grace getting checked for vision, doing some vision therapy, Clark getting checked up for his kidneys. Reese had a surgery to remove kind of a birthmark on his arm. We just have to constantly check that. But it is, in terms of anxiety and stress, it's not where it was, but I have to tell you, I still, with doctor visits, get very nervous because it could very easily say to me, Clark needs a kidney transplant. And that is really hard to not know what the future holds, but one thing you learn being the NICU is you have to take it day by day or it gets so overwhelming you can't handle what could be ahead.
4 babies for the first 2 months and then the 3 beyond that. It's a lot of technological need, it's a lot of equipment. It's everything that we rely on the telethon to help us fund in terms of the ability to provide the best care possible for these children. These kids are 11 years old. Since then we've come so far. We have humidified isolates, we have new kind of CPAP device, we have all these new things that we've been able to purchase and buy with telethon funds. You look back on these kids and go, okay, well if this is better, gosh, how could these kids have turned out if this had been available?
When we were there, there was a lot of medical equipment. For example, those dings and bings and that I was talking about, they were really loud when we were in the NICU. Now when you walk in, they slowly crescendo loud. So that has been something, the medical equipment that they can help with. We also, we had personal a priest and a pastor that worked with us, but for many times we needed one, and at the time there was one chaplain for the entire hospital at Geisinger, and now I know Children's Miracle Network has helped to make sure there's a pediatric chaplain. I would have loved to have had access to that when all this was going on. And then other things that they've done, I know they just, again, helping with knowing what are the newest technologies and what healthcare needs to be addressed. And I really feel confident that what they're doing is making it better for not just the patients, but the families that are involved as well, too. It's been a privilege, it really has. I'm so glad we waited. Dr. Johnson actually said, I've been waiting for years to have your kids be the Children's Miracle Network kids, but I'm glad they're doing it now because they'll remember it. And they're really understanding the value of what they're doing and how their story can help other families and other people who might be going through something that's difficult and trying.
So finally having this chance to feature them and bring their story, it's just wonderful to look at who they've become.
Well,
you can see why they're miracle kids for sure.
And it looks like kids being kids for sure, but we will see more of the Goodmans a little bit later on. But exactly what is the Children's Miracle Network and what do they do?
Dr. Bellino is chairperson of the Children's Miracle Network at Geisinger, Janet Weiss Children's Hospital in Danville, Pennsylvania. He sat down with our Kara Conrad to talk about his role and what the Children's Miracle Network has done for the hospital and the community.
We're here with Dr. Bellino, and we're talking about what he does here and with CMN. So can you just explain to us what it is you do?
Sure. Well, my role with Children's Miracle Network is I'm the chairman of the hospital's Children's Miracle Network. It's a region that stretches from all the way through the southern tier of New York, down along the northeastern portion of Pennsylvania, through central Pennsylvania, and actually all the way down to, in certain areas, close to the Maryland line. So it's a very large area. So we make sure that the children in those communities have resources. Geisinger is committed to trying to provide medical care as well as other programmatic care, be it through the school districts or through camp facilities or other things for children in those communities. And so my job is to basically try to ensure that we are considering all opportunities for children in those regions and representing those folks at the various committees that we have to ensure that funding is headed their way and to consider the operational aspects of things and identify children that we can use to sort of showcase the things that we do here at Geisinger and show the rest of the community what we can provide for them.
Right, so just tell us a little bit more in general what Children's Miracle Network is.
So Children's Miracle Network is a national organization that basically tries to identify funding for children with medical needs, to provide for hospitals to and health systems to have equipment to bring medical care to children, but also to provide for those same health systems to offer emotional support, family support, and those sorts of things for the families and the children that utilize their facilities.
Right, so really everything.
Yeah, really.
And then what about trauma? Let's talk a little bit about that, how trauma patients get here.
So in rural Pennsylvania, trauma is a big deal. Children experience more lethal trauma in our rural environment than children in urban settings. And so it's important then for us to be able to have a network to deliver care both locally and at a trauma center to children in our region. So the Janet Weiss Children's Hospital serves as the registered regional pediatric trauma center for this very large area of southern New York and northeastern and central Pennsylvania. And so children from all those areas are brought to us. And we work with our community hospital partners to ensure that not only is care delivered here and that we can get the children here, but that we begin delivering care in their emergency departments by providing medical support, conversational support to those providers, and then also transport support. So we have a life flight system here now that I think now has up to 7 helicopters that are able to sort of leave at a moment's notice and go and get children. And a ground transport service also that will travel pretty much anywhere to receive a child and bring that child down to here so that we can begin trauma care for them.
And then you have something new as well. What is that?
So, one of the things that we really feel is necessary to deliver cutting edge care is to really bring specialists with expertise in trauma to the bedside of a child that's been injured. And so we are working to develop the only regional children's emergency department here on this campus. And that would really be the first pediatric emergency department north of Route 80 in the entire state of Pennsylvania. So it would be it will be, and it is currently undergoing development as well. And so we're bringing in our first people in July.
So earlier we were with the Life Flight crew. So can you just explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, Life Flight has been part of Geisinger for many decades now, and actually started with having assistance with the local police helicopter years and years ago. So Life Flight now is a very big operation. There's several helicopters, I think up to 7. They're stationed in various areas around the treatment region. So we have them sort of not all physically located on the campus here in Danville, and that's to provide quicker pickup service for the communities that need us. And so they're deployed in various regions throughout our service area. And basically, you know, Life Flight is manned by nurses and paramedics as well as physicians. Years ago, I would actually fly myself. You know, and we're able then to bring the physician, to bring all the resources, the critical care resources to a small community emergency department, or even to the field if we need to initiate care, get patients stabilized, and get them back here as quickly as we possibly can.
Are there any new programs or expansions that you're working on?
Sure. Well, we've just completed a new expansion in our pediatric intensive care unit. At least phase 1 of that is now completed, and we've brought in and generated 2 larger rooms in the intensive care unit. This is to manage patients that are very equipment intensive, so patients that not just have a ventilator but also have monitoring equipment for pressure in their head, that have, you know, an ECMO circuit or something else, some other large pieces of equipment. And that is now up and running. The second phase of that expansion in the pediatric ICU is to create actually new space for our postoperative heart patients, just to ensure just a little bit larger space so that their equipment needs are able to be accommodated as well. We've also recently redesigned an area in the emergency department here to house our first steps at a proper pediatric emergency facility here. And that's now open and is beautiful, and families really appreciate that. And then ultimately we will be developing a larger space, a much bigger pediatric emergency department in front of the hospital over the next several years.
So a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
That's good.
Your donations to the Children's Miracle Network helps buy some of that equipment used in the NICU of Janet Weiss Children's Hospital. To keep state-of-the-art equipment coming, please donate. Call 1-800-KIDS. That's 1-800-799-5437 to donate now.
Or donate online by going to WBNG.com. Any and all donations count. Let's take a look at the NICU at Geisinger Janet Weiss Children's Hospital that contains some life-saving equipment funded by the Children's Miracle Network.
These are for the smaller babies. The idea of the incubator is to simulate the womb. So we control for humidity, temperature, and airflow is by, generally in this, when they come at this size, the ventilator. Thank you to the Miracle Network for this equipment, because not only can we control it, but it also gives us good readout on what's going on with the baby. So there's constant monitoring of these infants. Like I said, 25, 26 weeks. Baby's head would be about that size or smaller, normally weighing about 3 or 4 pounds. You can cradle them in your hands. Most of our babies go home within a short period of time. Average length of stay is usually 6 to 8 weeks. It depends on how the baby's doing. We have actually had some babies go home at a month of stay, which is incredible. Parents come over to see the babies, and they can come right away or as soon as they're able to. We can real quickly let them be able to start to touch their baby. We can bring babies at some point, some as early as that day or soon after when they stabilize, can come out of the incubator and mom and dad can hold them at the bassinet side. And we do that a lot. We do a thing called kangaroo care, which is skin to skin. Incredibly therapeutic for baby and mom and dad. We do that. Just recently we had a dad who'd been up all night before to have his little girl in one of these. Actually, they were right here. Daddy was holding her on her chest and he fell asleep. Daddy went first. So, but that's what we try to do, is bond them as best we can. Then as the babies mature, they come to what's called room air with no ventilators, and then they would go into a system like this. These are actually procedure beds, so they're higher, and our babies are much easier to access when they're there. They'll move from here to a crib. This is the size of one of their hats. So that's about the size of the neonate's head. At that point, it'd be 26 weeks, 27 weeks. The staff here does an incredible job. Their survival rate is phenomenally high for these high-risk infants.
Please donate. Call 1-800-KIDS. That's 1-800-799-5437. When the Goodman quadruplets were delivered, they had to be quickly taken from the delivery room and immediately put into the NICU.
Dr. Johnson walked us through this procedure using a practice doll.
So what we're doing now is using a doll to simulate what happened when the Goodman quadruplets are born, which is that each of them was passed through from the delivery room to the arms of a waiting member of the NICU staff. In this case, that's Jeannie McGargle, one of our nurse practitioners, who actually is who caught Gracie right after she was born.
You can keep on helping area children by donating today. Take a moment to donate by calling 1-800-799-5437. That's 1-800-799-KIDS, or donate online at WBNG.com.
Over the past 22 years, we have raised more than $2.5 million to help children like the ones you've met today. Events and donations from the generous people here in the Southern Tier are a part of the equation. CMN also receives support from great local companies in this effort. Candace and Howard had the pleasure of meeting with some of these companies recently.
A partner for many years with the Children's Miracle Network has been IHOP, and Heather joins us from the IHOP in Vestal, where they have also supported for many years the Children's Miracle Network celebration at Geisinger's Janet Weiss Children's Hospital in Danville. Every year, there's a special event that goes on in February to raise money. Tell us about that.
It's a free pancake day. We give away a short stack, and all we ask is for a donation for the Children's Miracle Network.
And it goes all day long.
All day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and it's nonstop chaos, I would like to say, but it's fun chaos.
How many pancakes did you serve up this year?
We served over 939 short stacks.
That's a lot. Do you find that people come back and kind of look forward to this year after year?
Every year we get phone calls. It's starting in January, and it doesn't go on until March. But we start balloon sales in January, so come in and donate for that.
All right. So tell us how much you raised this year.
This year we raised $2,700.
That is terrific. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for continuing to support the Children's Miracle Network. And you can make a donation by calling 1-800-799-KIDS. That's 1-800-799-5437, or just go to WBNG.com.
And joining me now is Christian from the Vestal Walmart. Thank you for joining us, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Talk a little bit about how much you guys, well, not how much you raised just yet. We'll get that into the second, but talk about what you guys did this year to help raise some money.
Well, we have drawers around the store for raising money where customers can actually put money into them. And we also, for a while, had register prompts at each register, and our cashiers would be prompted to ask the customer if they'd like to donate $1 to Children's Miracle Network.
And anytime I've ever been to the Vestal Walmart, it's been very busy, so of course you have a lot of customers in there. How much money were you folks able to raise this year?
We actually raised $11,799.
Look at that, over $11,000. That's phenomenal. Thank you so much. And of course, if you'd like to make a donation, it's easy. All you have to do is call 1-800-799-5437, or that's 1-800-799-KIDS, or visit WBNG.com.
I don't remember like very distinct being sick, but I remember my parents telling me they had to like carry me places because I couldn't walk. I don't remember any of that.
You know, we had been to local primary care physicians and all that, and we had CAT scans, all kinds of stuff. He just kept getting, like he said, sicker and sicker and sicker, and he just wasn't himself. We went through, different diagnosis. It was this, it was this, it was this, but yeah, we'd give him antibiotics and nothing would get better, and it's just an ongoing thing that just didn't seem to end.
I was young and really wasn't sure what was going on with him, but I knew he was sick or something.
He came to my clinic with complaints of recurrent off and on fevers, not feeling well, big lymph nodes, and have been treated with multiple antibiotics and just not getting well. So the family was quite concerned, and then at that time we decided to do some blood work. And the blood work was pointing towards a condition which we were suspecting all along.
Thursday they had us in Danville, and like Ethan alluded to, we were there, they ran some tests. Doctors told us go home, we'll let you know what's going on. But that was in Danville. We stopped in Wilkes-Barre and already received a phone call.
I looked over and I saw my mom she was crying. I didn't really know what was up. And we just got back from a test in Danville, and they were like, they want us to come back tomorrow. They said, you need to come back tomorrow. We're gonna do a bone marrow biopsy and go from there. I remember Dr. Ramdas coming in and being like, we found leukemia cells in your bone marrow.
I was afraid the whole time that it was something like that, and his primary care just kept poo-pooing me like I was being an overprotective. I knew something was wrong.
Ethan, you know, to our fault, Ethan and I were both like, you know, why are you thinking that? I can't. We never in a million years imagined it would be something like this.
So Ethan was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia back in April of 2010. So the treatment for acute lymphoblastic leukemia involves a long duration, multiple courses of chemotherapy. And it's given in different cycles where the initial treatment is quite intense, and as we go further down, they become less intense.
There were a lot of side complications that came with the treatment, and that's where the hard part came in.
After a few weeks, he started to develop some complications and ended up developing a complication called typhlitis, which is he was having an inflammation in his intestines. And then he had a very life-threatening kind of complication, which we call it as the veno-occlusive disease, which carries close to 40 to 50% mortalities.
I remember being on a gurney, like looking up, and this nurse walked by and she put a sign on the door in big red letters and it said septic, or like sepsis alert or something like that. And I had no idea what that was.
But when he alluded to the sepsis alert, at the time I honestly didn't know what that meant. And I asked the nurse, and I think she was kind of protecting me. She had said it's kind of a protocol, you know, to let others know.
And I remember my dad holding my hand. I was pretty loopy at the time. I don't know. I was going into shock is what was happening. So they life flighted me and they put me in like this like astronaut suit looking thing. I got in the helicopter. I remember being extremely mad because they told me my dad couldn't ride in the helicopter with me. I was like, you're not. But I ended up having to go by myself. But the team in there, the Geisinger life flight team, was really good.
That day of the life flight was probably the hardest day of my life ever. Because like Ethan alluded to, I couldn't go with him.
He was in a quite sick state at that time, and we were quite concerned. He stayed in our pediatric intensive care unit for almost close to 17 days, and had a lot of other related complications with this. But fortunately, he was able to tide out of that complication and was able to maintain his treatments through the different phases of the chemotherapy. The treatment for acute lymphoblastic leukemia can last anywhere from like up to 3 years. So he started his treatment in 2010, and we finally finished the treatment in 2013.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel aspect. And no matter how far away that light was, you just had to focus on seeing it. And you had to find some will to say that it will be over.
When we talk about acute lymphoblastic leukemia, so we use a term called remission when we do not see the leukemia cells. And once they are past 5 years from the initial phase of the diagnosis, that's when we call the term called technically they are cured out of the leukemia. So again, Ethan still needs to be monitored, and then we do have to watch and make sure that this doesn't come back. So eventually, yes, he's going to grow out of this, and then we can call him that he's cured of his acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
3.5 years is a long road. I mean, he still goes to checkups every other month. You know, we're still not quite out of the blue, but you know, it's way, way better than it was.
He's doing fantastic, and we see him on a routine basis. Any child who has gone through the chemotherapy, we still have to watch them again to make sure that there is no recurrence of this cancer. And also we are watching for any late effects from the medications. We want to make sure he's growing appropriately, and so at this moment I have to say he's thriving. He's enjoying all the routine kind of like a 16-year-old child will do, and he's very passionate about sports and his school activities and all, and so he's doing extremely well at this moment.
From where we've seen him to where he is now and the man he's becoming is just, you know, it takes my breath away and puts me at a loss for words.
Your donations help other amazing children like you've just met not only survive, but thrive. So take a moment to donate. Call 1-800-799-5437.
That's 1-800-799-KIDS. Or You can donate online at WBNG.com. When there is a serious injury, seconds count. Sometimes that means an ambulance may not be fast enough. Geisinger Hospital in Danville has Life Flight, a state-of-the-art helicopter that can bring children in quickly.
The helicopter you see behind me is the EC-145. We typically fly with one pilot, one paramedic, one nurse. Can take a patient, sometimes two patients, or we can take an extra crew member, especially for the baby flights. The best and quickest patient care at the same time. From Binghamton to Geisinger, that's going to be about probably a 40-minute flight. We mostly do inter-facility transfers, hospital to hospital, but we do a lot of scene flights also, where we go out to a field or a highway, that type of thing, and we'll pick up a patient from there. And all kinds of cool stuff on the EC-145. I like it. It's a nice platform. It's got autopilot, so once we're up and flying, it's easy to punch in the course, bring it online, and let the helicopter fly for us. PICU flight, usually about one or two per week, I would say, the way it's been running. Closer look at the EC-145, normally flown single pilot, so if you want to look in here, the pilot in command sits in the right seat there, back. So you see there's two seats for crew members here, and then there's another seat to your left, around further back a little bit here on the right side, and that's where the nurse and the paramedic, or possibly two nurses and a paramedic, would sit. You see the litter there on the left side in the back. That's where the patient would be, and the patient gets loaded in from the rear through the clamshell doors, and we'll take you around back here and you can take a look at that. This is the patient loading doors around the back. This aircraft is ready for response to any sort of patient request at this point. There's some of the equipment that we have in the back here. We have medical packs that contain medications and various items to care for patients. We have a ventilator that will allow us to breathe for patients from newborn all the way up to older adults. This is our primary stretcher. We have a monitor that will allow us to monitor heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen levels, and that sort of thing while we're out flying. And the large bag on the head of the stretcher is our primary bag that contains the vast majority of our medication and equipment that we use for scene calls or inter-hospital transfers. We also have intravenous infusion pumps on board that can supply medications as needed. A lot of this equipment is partially funded by Children's Miracle Network telethon contributions.
Our Children's Miracle Network celebration continues with Jerry from the Rite Aid in Norwich, and thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about what the Rite Aid in Norwich does to raise funds.
Well, at the registers, we always have the balloons, of course. One of the biggest things we do is most of my vendors are very good about donating prizes and gifts to raffle off, and that's one of my biggest things that they do a lot for us.
So your customers kind of come in looking for the raffle. What's the prize of the week?
This year, again, I have a big basketball hoop. So that went over well last year. We got another one again this year. One from Pepsi, one from Northern Eagle. They did a great job donating all this stuff to us for the raffles. I love the fact that all my vendors are helpful.
So we thank you, we thank your customers, we thank your vendors.
Absolutely.
Okay, tell us how much you raised this year.
This year, we raised $1,202.
Thank you so much. And remember, you can help make a donation by calling 1-800-799-KIDS or going to WBNG.com. Your donations stay local to help children who are served by the Janet Weiss Children's Hospital in Danville, Pennsylvania.
Well, it was November 2011. Christopher and some friends went rollerblading, and he came home and he was complaining of a sore leg. And we really didn't think anything of it because he hadn't been rollerblading in a while. We thought we needed to investigate it a little further. And that's when we saw the orthopedics. And when they x-rayed it, he seemed very concerned immediately. And in fact, he had scheduled us to go to Geisinger on the spot. For me, it was overwhelming. I mean, at first, because the hospital was large and, you know, we just didn't know what to expect. Diagnosis was osteosarcoma, which is a rare bone cancer that was in his left, basically his left femur and just above the knee. And at that point, they prepared us for a long process. He said it was going to take a long time, and we ended up actually camping there, the two of us, with him each night that he had procedure after procedure.
His treatment first entailed a biopsy of the tumor to show that it was an osteosarcoma, a bone cancer, a malignant tumor of bone. And then it also included imaging of other parts of his body, of his chest and elsewhere, to make sure that the tumor had not metastasized. And then, following that evaluation, he was treated first with chemotherapy for about 3 months. And then he had surgery to remove the tumor from his leg, and then additional chemotherapy afterwards.
After the treatments went on, Dr. Ramdas and the other doctors concurred that the chemotherapy wasn't shrinking the tumor like they had hoped. They were concerned that it could be in the lymph nodes, so we had a hard decision to make at that point. Should we, I mean, they could operate, they could put a rod in, they could do an amputation. So we had a very hard decision to make. We talked about it, we prayed about it, we listened to the doctors, and we felt that we wanted the best chances to get rid of the disease with the amputation.
So he chose an operation that's really quite uncommon in the United States. He chose an operation called a rotationplasty. That's where we remove a segment of the bone and a segment of tissue in the thigh, and then use the remainder leg, the tibia, the lower leg bone, to reconstruct the upper leg. So it has its advantages, and I think he saw that and his family saw that as a way that's right for them, and that's exciting.
All the times that you know were bad, Chris never complained. He rarely ever would complain about anything. He knew what he had to do, and he would do it. So he never really, he always kept us going because he just wouldn't get down, and that he just kept everybody going.
And so it's a person who says, in my life, I want one operation that's likely to work, that'll grow, and that will work for the remainder of my years in anticipation of surviving the cancer and living many years into the future. So I think that if you look at patients in the United States who choose rotationplasty, they're special people. They're people who value function over cosmetics. They're people that tells you something about who they are. And I think Chris is a really special kid. I mean, he's a child who has values that are unique and experiences that are unique. And I really feel like he is set apart for something special. I can't wait to see what he does in the years to come.
People will come up to us and say, I have just found out I have cancer, but I think about Chris and he's inspiring me to do what I have to do to win this battle, because he's my inspiration. I mean, people have even stopped him and said that to him, not even just to us, but I can't count the number of people that have told me, but they've even stopped him and said, you've been our inspiration because of everything you've done and the way you handled yourself throughout it. So he's inspired a lot of people.
Now joining us right now, Taina and Allison from Rite Aid and Endwell. Ladies, thank you for joining us this year. Talk a little bit about what you guys were able to do at the store to raise some money this year.
We would sell balloons to the customers, and they would donate $1 each, and they would get a coupon card as an incentive to donate. It was for a really good cause, and a lot of the customers enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, there was probably a little bit of competition in between members of the store. Talk a little bit about that, Allison.
There was a little bit of competition. Me and Taina were the ones that sold the most at the store, and we both sold around like 250, so we were pretty close.
That's fantastic. Of course, we thank you for that. Now, for the question everybody wants to hear, how much money were you guys able to raise?
We raised $1,005.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And of course, if you'd like to make a donation, you can dial 1-800-799-5437 or visit our website, wbng.com.
The helicopter is amazing, but sometimes weather does not allow flight. The Life Flight 1 critical care ground truck provides fast transport when flying is impossible.
And your donations have made this possible. Chief Flight Nurse Rick Robinson gave us a tour of the Life Flight 1 critical care ground truck.
My name's Rick Robinson. I'm the team coordinator and chief flight nurse for the Danville Life Flight 1 base and the critical care ground truck base. The critical care ground truck was begun in the early part of 2016 as adjunct to helicopter transports. It'll allow us to do critical care transports when the weather is not sufficient for helicopter flight, and it allows us to serve the healthcare system in a different and hopefully better method than we did have previously. We go as close as Sunbury Hospital or Bloomsburg Hospital, and we go as far away as Boston Children's Hospital. Our Avoca base takes patients into Binghamton on a fairly regular basis. The types of transports that we do on the ground truck vary from all the way from premature babies up to older adult patients. This truck was custom designed for the Geisinger Health System to transport 2 isolates. We have a liquid oxygen system on board the truck, which provides us essentially an unlimited supply of oxygen if we need it. We also have a generator on board the truck that would supply us power in the unlikely event of a mechanical breakdown of the primary engine of the truck. We have a lift on the back of the ambulance that will lift up to 1,300 pounds. It folds out of the back, and we can put an entire ambulance stretcher onto the lift. It is spacious. It has seating for 4 individuals in the back. We have a refrigerator on board just in case we need to transport any medical samples or refrigerated medication. We also have a DVD player and a television set in the back of the ambulance that folds down and allows the children to watch their favorite movies while we're transporting. Keeps their mind occupied. The Children's Miracle Network Telethon did provide about half of the funding for the acquisition of this vehicle.
Joining us are members of the Phi Delta Epsilon fraternity at Binghamton University who have also supported the Children's Miracle Network for many years. Sam, can you tell us why it's so important for your fraternity to do this?
As pre-medical students, we are really, all about fundraising and just trying to give back in many ways. Being able to give back to a hospital in particular is really amazing. So being able to give directly and have local, donations, have a local impact to our local children's hospital is something that, I think I can speak for all of us and say, it holds a tremendous value, being able to do that for us.
Now, you actually have 2 events that are getting pretty big on campus to support this. Can you tell us about those?
Right. So we actually, in the fall, we have our signature event where all chapters across, it's actually international in both Canada and Mexico. In addition to United States, we hold an event in the fall called Stand for the Kids. Basically, it's just everyone is all united together. Everyone is all fundraising at the same time. throughout the world, and it's for us in particular. We were on campus. It was a beautiful day, sunny, 70 degrees in October. We sold Chipotle and Moe's burritos on campus to the students.
Sounds pretty good. And then you dance it all off in the spring.
That's right. In the spring, with partners with Binghamton University and their Greek Life, we hold a dance marathon, which also we just dance and have a good time raising money for Children's Miracle Network.
Okay, so how much are we raising so far?
So in the fall semester, we raised $4,993.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for the work that you do for the Children's Miracle Network. This one supports the Janet Weiss Children's Hospital in Danville, Pennsylvania. You can also make a donation by calling 1-800-799-KIDS or go to our website, wbng.com.
We're joined now with a couple of people from Norwich Walmart. Joining with me now is Patricia and Steve. Thank you guys for joining us this year. Patricia, we were talking before that you folks did a little bit of fundraising, of course, at the store this year. Talk a little bit about what you did this year.
Yes, we did. We did the donation jars. We did the bid on a manager. We did the hot dog and hamburger rolls, and we had a spaghetti dinner.
And now we were also talking that Steve had to dress up, and we want to get a little bit of information about that, Steve. And so go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you had to do.
Yeah, so we did a management penny war, where associates could donate pennies towards putting a manager in a hot dog suit for a day. And I was the winner or the loser, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it.
And like I said, it's either you were the most popular or the least popular at that point.
Yeah, I was.
Well, again, certainly we wanted to, this is all about the children and raising some money for the children. So how much money did you raise this year?
$10,572.
That's phenomenal. We thank you so much for your help again this year. And if you want to make a donation, you can call 1-800-799-5437. That's 1-800-799-KIDS.
Now, once a child has been brought to the hospital by helicopter or ambulance, it's critical to get them to treatment as fast as possible.
Transport nurses assure that the children are brought in safely and quickly.
So the transport team consists of always one of 8 of us in our NICU here. It's a specialized team. We are the eyes and ears of the doctors. We have a training period of at least a year, and we always go with at least one other nurse and a medic. So many times our other people that go with us is actually life flight themselves. If we're coming in by helicopter, we do come in on the roofs, get the baby then down through the hospital and into the unit from there. If we're going by ambulance, we are brought right down to the main entrance and we offload there and bring the baby up in the elevator. We go up into New York quite a bit. Was just to Binghamton yesterday. I've been to Syracuse. All of this equipment is bought by telethon funds. This is the equipment that we use to pick up babies at other hospitals. So the transport team many times is the first person that the parents meet. It's important to make a really good first impression.
We're fortunate the students at Binghamton University are big supporters of the Children's Miracle Network, which benefits the Janet Weiss Children's Hospital in Danville, Pennsylvania. They started an event a few years back called the Dance Marathon, and Erin's here to tell us a little bit about it.
Hi. So the Dance Marathon at Binghamton University raises money for the Dansville Hospital, like we talked about. It's Janet Weiss. This year we were able to raise over $25,000. The event consists of the students getting together for about a 7-hour-long dance marathon where we're all encouraged to stand the whole time because we stand up for those that can't. It's mostly just people are encouraged to fundraise before the event. They make teams with their student organizations, and then they come and have a good time to celebrate the money that we raised.
And this involves all the Greek life on the campus?
Yes. We work through the Greek Life office, so that's kind of like our target audience. We do try to bring in as many student groups as possible because our hope for the future is that every student group will be a part of the dance marathon and that it will be a campus-wide event to kind of bring us all together in the tradition of doing something good.
Okay, thank you so much. I know you just mentioned it, but let's show the check. How much did we raise this year?
$25,482.66.
All right, so remember, next year, everybody get their dance on over at Binghamton University. To support the Children's Miracle Network, you can too, just by calling 1-800-799-5437 or go to WBNG.com.
And with us now, right now, is Dee and Christopher from Johnson City Walmart. And of course, just like previous stores, we've been doing quite a bit of fundraising throughout the year to help this cause. And Christopher, what did you guys do this year at the Johnson City?
Well, we actually had the register prompts. We have the donation bins actually around the store. And then we actually did a special one where the JCPD was involved. And you could choose whatever manager you want to go spend the day in the Johnson City Jail. And then they had to raise money for release. So we actually had co-manager Anthony and co-manager Amber who went to the jail for the day.
How did that turn out? How was the participation store-wide with that?
Everyone was on board with it. It was down to the last 10 seconds pretty much of everyone putting money into there. So it was a very close race.
And that's fantastic. And that's a unique idea too. And of course you got to thank Johnson City PD for also
support with it.
Yeah, for partaking in that as well. And of course joining us now is Dee. Dee, you have maybe the most important job here, and that is of course how much money were you folks able to raise?
Able to raise $4,757.
That's fantastic. Again, we can't thank you guys enough for helping us again this year. We certainly appreciate that. And of course, if you'd like to make a donation, it is as easy as it can get. Just pick up your phone, call 1-800-799-5437. That's 1-800-799-KIDS. Or of course, you can always visit our website. That is WBNG.com.
We want to thank you for joining us for the 2017 Children's Miracle Network celebration. This is our 22nd year working with the Children's Miracle Network at Geisinger Janet Weiss Children's Hospital in Danville, Pennsylvania.
And you can help sick and injured children in our community by calling 1-800-799-5437 and donating today.
Your donations go toward specialized equipment, the Child Life Program, health education, special summer camps, and much, much more for the children at the Geisinger Janet Weiss Children's Hospital.
And with your help, we can continue these efforts. Please call 1-800-799-KIDS or go online to donate at WBNG.com. Thank you again for joining us and for your generous support.
Thank you.
It's an organization that helps in so many ways. Like you don't even, when you're going through the process as a parent, you don't even understand because you're caught up in other things. But as far as the equipment, the doctors, the medicines, the social personnel, everything that, you know, if you need to stay there, everything that's kind of taken care of for you.
I believe in what Children's Miracle Network does. Giving money back to the local clinics and hospitals is phenomenal, and investing for an amazing cause that at the time, 11 years ago, I was not very happy and not smiling very often. It was few and far between. It was a really tough time. And if it hadn't been for the things Children's Miracle Network had put in place at that time, or what they're doing now to see the change and to be able to smile about it now at this stage is phenomenal. And I'm just extremely grateful for and privileged to be part of their campaign. I think it's an amazing cause, and
there are some kids who need some things, you know, surgeries and procedures and preemies that need, you know, extended hospital coverage. So, you know, it's a good cause for all of that stuff.
I don't know when I'll be back in the hospital again, if I ever will be. I'm hoping not, but knowing that Children's Miracle Network has your back if you go back in, because they're looking for ways to make it easier, both not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, is such a gift. So thank you for donating. It's amazing.